Alright, welcome to round 3, jumping right into the action. Didn't want to bore you guys with the shuffling, so we have Jesse Martin with his TPS list, Classic Jesse, versus, I'm sorry, what's the opponent's name?
Dave Nunes.
Dave Nunes playing White Trash, which anyone who's familiar with Legacy will look very similar to Death and Taxes. One of the main differences being it doesn't rely on the Mangara of Karandor with Caracas interaction. And it doesn't look like it plays Aethervial either.
No, you definitely want to have Stony Silence to be able to attack the opponent's mana base. Much more important than the slight quasi-acceleration you get out of Aethervial. You're pretty much relying on Cavern of Souls to make sure your guys stick.
And it's just got all the hate. Like, it plays the 4 Thalia, 4 Leonin Relic Warder for the main deck removal, because everybody plays artifacts in this format. 4 Leonin Arbiter, which makes, what is that? Is that affects the way you search?
Yeah, you have to pay 2 more for the turn. It's not per search. You just pay 2 and then you can search your library this turn.
Okay, but I mean that definitely affects like fetch lands and things like that. We've got the Aven Mind Sensor, Kataki War's Wage. I mean, just a blowout against shops. Even very good against decks that are relying on power for their mana base. Dryad Militant. I don't even know what that does, so I know it's a 1-drop 2/1. Affects the graveyard.
Yeah, it exiles instants and sorceries when they go to the graveyard. So it's like a mini ley line with legs. It's one of those cards that I expect years from now we'll probably see a lot more play. It's green or white hybrid, and it just really hasn't found much of a home yet. This is as close to people have been, really successful with it, and it's just another hate bear. The thing is, a lot of the time people tend to remove it for stuff like Gaddock Teague or other more powerful effects. It's just a nice, subtle little effect, and I think in Vintage it makes more of an impact than in any other format. But in Vintage, a 2/1 for 1 mana makes probably the smallest impact compared to all the other formats. So
right,
the strengths in Vintage are the weaknesses in the other formats, and vice versa. I play it in Standard, and the ability is completely irrelevant. But a 2/1 for 1 is actually good in Standard right now.
I remember when I used to play Savannah Lions. This one actually does something.
Yeah. Now, you'll also notice he has Path to Exile, which is just fun with the Leonin Arbiter. If they can't pay the 2, they don't get to search for the land.
And most people will have 1 basic land at most, and they probably fetch it out early, seeing all these wastelands come at you, and a strip mine. He's got 2 Chrome Mocks, which is interesting because he's got the Stony Silence, but you really just need to ramp out into there. And Grand Abolisher, that's, what does that make things cost more or something? Is that 2/2 for 3? That
Grand Abolisher is the one that you can only play. It's actually on board right now. He's 2 white mana, and you cannot play spells on your opponent's turn.
Okay.
Or opponents can't play spells on your turn. I think you might be able to play it on their turn. That I am not sure on. It does not seem to come up very often.
So he just has all of the hate bears. Phyrexian Revoker. Jesse not taking damage off that mana crypt right there. So Jesse needs to pay 2 more to search his library, but so Jesse right now has kind of like a open window. There's none of those permanent based hate cards are actually affecting Jesse's ability to win this turn. It's totally based on his hand. Like Grafdigger's Cage, who cares? Grand Abolisher, it's his turn. He's got he probably has to tutor in order to win, so that Leonin Arbiter is probably the only thing that's affecting him.
Yeah, Arbiter's definitely, if you can pay the 2 and work around them for the 1 turn, you're fine. In multiples, they're totally solid. James actually just showed me that the text on the Grand Abolisher, it's during your turn. So it's actually just one-sided. Jesse can't play stuff on Dave's turn.
And we can't quite see it off camera, but at the bottom on the right, Dave's got an Aven Mind Sensor in hand as well. So, okay. So Jesse's getting wasted here. This is definitely not looking good for him. He's down to 6. He's got to win next turn. He's down a mana. He can't really effectively search his library. So, probably not going to win this game. Unfortunately, well, I don't want to sound like I'm rooting for anybody, but I like Storm, so I'm rooting for Jesse. Even though Dave's deck is really cool. Like, much love, Dave. Your deck is awesome. I really like to see people come out and brew stuff up, take sort of like ideas that have kind of been around, but just sort of like go in a whole new direction with it. Really explore this, making Death and Taxes a legit vintage list, and it's unpowered. Just walking all over this fully powered Storm list.
He is in good shape here. Now Jesse has had very little impact on the game with those duresses. Pretty much anything that you're going to want to duress is actually a creature, so that's a problem. But I don't think Jesse's list really wants to run Thoughtseize. This matchup is pretty rare, and the 2-life is very relevant in a deck that's hoping to get down to Yawgmoth's Bargain or Necropotence. Cards like Grim Tutor and Vampiric Tutor are already cutting into your life total, as well as the occasional attack step from the creatures that are now all over the place in the format.
You can't afford to play Inquisition because it doesn't take Force of Will, which is like the whole reason for a discard spell.
And to a lesser degree, Jace, but those two cards, mostly Force, makes Inquisition not attractive at all.
So Jesse's got a Chain of Vapor, a Memory Jar, a Dark Ritual. I'm having a hard time telling exactly what's in his hand.
Yeah, Dark Ritual, Chain of Vapor, Memory Jar. So if he's, worst case scenario, he's going to be able to just rip 7 here.
That's what he's going to need to do. He's got to have mana floating. I can't tell what kind of Mox.
That's a Ruby.
Oh, there's a Ruby. So he's going to start off with the Ritual, but that's going to take away his access to blue mana. If he draws a land, though. No, did he make a land? No, he didn't make a land drop this turn.
Yeah, he's probably going to float a black and go ahead and Ritual into the jar.
3, 4, 5. Use the red, so have a black floating. Can make your blue land drop. That's about the best you can hope to do at this point. He would have to draw a pretty bonkers 7, but it could totally happen.
Oh, we've got a Chain of Vapor.
Chain of Vapor nets mana here, but not as much as... No, it nets the same amount of mana as Dark Ritual.
Oh, we've got a off-camera creature getting bounced.
That was the Aven Mind Sensor. So, Aven Mind Sensor has flash, but his opponent is sufficiently tapped down. We've got 1 mana floating. Up to 3, and then 4, and then a land drop. Oh, Chrome Mox. Get rid of Yogwell? What?
Oh, interesting. With the Graph Digger's Cage in play.
Yeah.
Still not strong enough. All he's really done is duressed and put some lands in the bin.
So now he's up to 4 mana. 5, 6, 7 mana he can make. I would use all the colorless possible. I count red as colorless in this list, in this blue-black list. 3, 4, 5. So he's what is he floating? 2 black? Yeah, he's floating 2 black. Crack the jar. Storm of, let's see, Chain of Vapor, Dark Ritual, Chrome Mox, and Mana Crypt. So that's 4. And he definitely has spells in his hand. I saw a Dark Ritual, a Mox Emerald, something blue. Can't be that bad if it's blue, right?
Well, most of these cards are going to need to be played this turn in order for Jesse to win, so let's see what he can do with it. He's got to accelerate some mana and then either pay for the Arbiter and search, or just have naturally drawn the Tendrils. We haven't seen that yet. I believe if he had the Tendrils, it probably would already be on the table here. He'd probably just play some mana and get it done.
Yeah, no, he's definitely... The amount of thought going into this hand as he's scooping, he's thinking about it. He's got a Jace...
Time Walk, no blue.
His opponent
showed us, but we didn't catch it. I saw some planes there, but those cards were going away regardless.
Yeah.
Was no possibility of him being able to use those.
So Jesse didn't quite get there. But Jesse has the ability. He's on the play game too, so he has the ability to just win on turn 1, uninterrupted. And his opponent's not playing power, so unless he draws one of his 2 of Chrome Moxes, he's not going to play anything turn 1 that's going to have a significant impact. No, Dryad Militant. Dryad Militant kind of turns off your Yawgmoth's Will plan. So Jesse really needs really a turn 1 win.
I mean, a turn 1 win's always fine.
Yeah. Every time. Duresses can come out. Probably bring in, I don't know, maybe like a Pyroclasm. I don't know how much red he's got. Probably almost none.
Yeah, Toxic Deluge is a card as well.
Yeah.
I think we'll probably see Jesse just trying to keep his deck consistent here and just find a way to win in the first turn or two. That's usually going to be good enough. And on the play, on the draw, it's a different story. Now, in the past, a lot of the time, even if it's a mono white deck, you'll see a budget deck like this running Elvish Spirit Guide. I would definitely consider that over the Chrome Mox. It's interesting to see.
Yeah, the non-bow with the Stony Silence kind of makes it so I would not do that. But
it's going down a card is mostly what I'm concerned about, because either way, I mean, the Spirit Guide you get to use once, and even if you're using Chrome Mox to play Stony Silence, you still only get to use it once. But going down a card is a real problem.
Looks like Jesse's bringing in a Rebuild, some Toxic Deluge, maybe it was either Massacre or Infest. I couldn't quite see.
Yeah, he's used both of those over the years. Massacre is extremely strong versus this.
Can you imagine?
There's no Gaddock Teague. There's always going to be a Plains.
But that's the thing with Massacre, though. Like, whenever we're building a Storm sideboard, it's like, oh, Massacre would be awesome, except it doesn't kill Teague, which is like the biggest white creature you need to kill. He is the one that says you can't play Tendrils. So all the other creatures just kind of like tax everything you do. And Teague is the one that just says no. So.
Yeah, you absolutely have to handle Teague. And Chain of Vapor does a good job of that. I'm a big fan of that card. So.
Right. I mean, I played Massacre in Legacy when I knew there was... over the course of 9 rounds, I would play Death and Taxes at least once, maybe twice. I don't think Jesse walked into this tournament worrying about a Death and Taxes list or white trash in this instance.
No, I agree. I think Toxic Deluge is probably going to be the strongest card in his sideboard for this matchup.
Yep. Infest is fine as well. I don't think any of Dave's creatures have a bigger butt than 2.
No, he has Student of Warfare, which can get pretty big, but that might even come out because it's so slow.
Yeah, Student of Warfare is literally just a clock. It's the only creature that doesn't affect Jesse's game plan other than how many turns he has to win.
Yeah, he's gonna, on Dave's side, almost certainly gonna have access to Aethersworn Canonist. That's one of the best white creatures there. Now that doesn't actually stop Jesse from winning, unfortunately, as he can play a bunch of Moxes into some kind of bomb.
What does Abolish do? What is that card?
Abolish is a free disenchant. You discard a Plains.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's from Prophecy. That's a solid card. I like it.
Probably not coming in this matchup.
No, I can't imagine that it would really be worth it. Versus Oath of Druids, it's a nice free answer. It's also good versus Workshops. Can't get any cheaper than free. Not yet.
Someday.
Yeah, playing around spheres and stuff. Maybe we'll see that at some point, like actually free. Who cares about Trinisphere, like a activated ability on a card?
Merfolk Spirit Guide's gonna draw a card.
There you go.
When they print it.
Yeah, Elvish Spirit Guide's pretty much exactly the type of thing I'm talking about. It's actually better than free. Because like even if they have Trinisphere, it's still netting mana. One of the few cards. There's a lot of situations you see in Vintage where only a card like Elvish Spirit Guide could get you out of it, and Thalia creates those situations.
You hear that, Jesse? Elvish Spirit Guides. If only they added to Storm. Although in Legacy, you see Charbelcher decks play both Spirit Guides, a full set of both.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot. As the game goes on, we're going to see more and more just like collateral damage in terms of just really degenerate decks that aren't necessarily that consistent, but they just want to win on the first turn, which I think is fun. The new Balustrade Spy and Undercity Informant, Underworld Informant, whatever his name is.
Let you reanimate a Azami and a Laboratory Maniac.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and that's very, very similar to Belcher. I mean, it's basically just a no-land list that just looks to play a 4-mana spell on the first turn.
Jesse's deck is sufficiently random in his eyes. Both decks are sufficiently random.
Everyone was watching. They're shuffled. Here we go. Jesse looking for something really explosive versus this deck, or very resilient. Those are really his two options.
Yeah.
Middle of the road, not so great versus white trash. They are going to disrupt you if you give them enough time.
Did I see a Lion's Eye Diamond? Lion's Eye Diamond has no business in this deck.
A lot of mana.
I don't think it was a Lion's Eye Diamond. Yeah, it looks like Jesse's got a couple of lands and like a Grim Tutor and a Mystical Tutor. Definitely has those cards. A Ponder. Yeah, so he's just kind of got like one of those middle of the road hands. Now, if anybody can use this hand to win, it's Jesse. He's gonna grab that dual land. You can't be afraid. Although with a middle of the road hand like this, like he doesn't really, I don't think he has too much acceleration. He's just got, oh, what is that? A Chrome Mox.
Looks like a Mana Vault.
Okay, he's got the Crypt.
Yep.
And a Mana Vault. Okay. Not so middle of the road.
Jin altered Mana Crypt is summoning its buddy, Mana Vault. All sorts of acceleration here. 1 mana floating.
He could actually just play a Memory Jar here. Imagine that, huh? So he's still got a Grim Tutor, a Mystical Tutor, and a Ponder, and a card that I don't know.
Jesse weighing his options. Dave twiddling his thumbs. Nothing he can do here. That is the difficult part of playing the budget deck here, is you have literally no interaction on the draw. You just have to hope that they don't have those very rare first turn kills.
Yep. It is a Lion's Eye Diamond. I love it. I hate it and I love it. It's only good with tutors, but I guess you're playing the most quality tutors in this format, so it's good. It's also good with Memory Jar.
Yeah, really any card drawing.
And Brainstorm.
Yep.
And Ancestral.
He has Jace the Mind Sculptor too.
Okay.
You could like put Yogg Will on top, crack LED, draw into it.
Alright, I can kind of get on board. So he's Chrome Moxing away the Ponder.
Looks like he's just going for it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're putting Ponder on a Chrome Mox, you're definitely using the Chrome Mox this turn for something extremely relevant.
He must not have a Grim Tutor in hand. I thought it was a Grim Tutor, but he can't produce double black. Mystical Tutor is still... Did he have a Mystical?
Oh, he could Mystical Tutor for some acceleration, or the Tendrils, or a Demonic Tutor, and then jar into it. Would be totally reasonable. He still has 1 floating. You could also get Lotus. Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
so
I think that was kind of a...
That was very, very... Oh, and the Student of Warfare is left in. So Jesse playing that Chrome Mox there, I really don't see the reasoning behind that. Maybe he was afraid of a first turn Thalia?
Yeah, first turn Thalia could definitely be a consideration.
That's really the only consideration I can see. That Ponder could definitely come in handy. So we've got the LED.
Storm of 1.
Looks like Jesse just wants to run out. Oh, I'm not actually sure. I was trying to figure out what was in his hand there.
I'm like 90% sure that one of the cards is Grim Tutor.
Yeah, one of them definitely looks like Grim Tutor. Is the other one Memory Jar is the question.
That would be Storm at 2. Ugh. Oh, he had that card in his... No, he didn't have that in his hand last turn. Imagine if he did, and that would just be like Chrome Locks, Mana Vault, Mana Crypt. That would be...
Yeah, LED is also really good with Mind's Desire.
LED, Mind's Desire. Yeah, he could
Because you're able to crack it before you play any of your cards off the Mind's Desire.
But you can't... It's not like he knew he was going to draw Mind's Desire.
I was just talking about the strength of the card in the deck. I'm very confused by Jesse's line here, is what I'm trying to figure out.
I'm thinking maybe he thought he was going to be able to produce double black. Or like, he just like thought he had a different tutor in hand. Very low. Ooh, no. Because he can tutor this turn.
Yeah, he can go get
Storm.
He can go get play that. Go,
Storm is 3.
Ritual.
4,
play Grim Tutor for Yawgmoth's Will. He's going to be able to Mind's Desire again. Here he's going to Ritual, Grim Tutor, respond, crack LED, go get Yawgmoth's Will. Yawgmoth's Will, replay Dark Ritual and Grim Tutor, and then Mind's Desire.
And Lion's Eye Diamond.
Yep. So
he can play Lion's Eye Diamond, sack it, then play the Mind's Desire.
Yeah, no, he's going to Mind's Desire again here. There's no way he doesn't see this line. Cracking for black, tap the
Emerald.
Emerald.
Do it! Do it now! Oh, Jesse.
Yeah. So he cracked the LED for black here. He's going to go get Yawgmoth's Will. Tap the Emerald. He'll still have a black floating. And then...
Same thing.
Yeah, ultimately it's the same. That's fine.
So this Mind's Desire will be for... Let's see. He desired for 2. So he went LED, Desire, Ritual, Mox, Tutor, and then he'll go Yawgwill, Ritual, LED. Does he Desire first, or does he Tutor for something?
Well, he could use the Dark Ritual to Grim Tutor for Black Lotus. That's also just fine.
Yep.
He could also grab Academy. Yeah, he could grab Academy. That would be reasonable, but it wouldn't add to the storm. So
he's going to Desire for 8 or 9.
Oh,
just a scoop.
Interesting scoop. I don't agree with that.
Yeah,
I definitely don't agree with that. I'd want to see those 8 cards. I have whiffed off of that before.
I think Jesse's playing. He's playing the Tinker Blightsteel plan in here, and I really do like that plan in a storm list when you're also playing Memory Jar, because it gives your Tinker much more play.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's probably a necessary evil. The problem is you can't really defend it in a deck like this.
But it's mainly just in there for shops and these crazy creature, things that you wouldn't expect.
Yep, absolutely. So against this, even Tinker Blightsteel, now you're looking at like the Leonin Relic Warden being a problem.
Oh yeah.
Something like Itaki could potentially be a problem if they're able to waste you out of your mana base, though obviously much less of a threat than the Relic Warden. And you also have the Path to Exiles to potentially consider.
Yeah, so actually it's not even the strongest card to leave in. I mean, it's still just turn 1 like Blightsteel, and Jesse plays Force of Will.
Yeah, it's fine. It's just not like it is in a Grixis control list.
Right.
Versus when you're playing a Grixis list, you can Tinker Blightsteel and have like Force and Misstep backup, and it's just like no matter what they have, it's just not going to matter.
Truth.
And you also have removal for their guy, so if they do have a Relic Warden, you can just like bolt them. You don't care.
All right, so
going into game 3 here.
Game 3. Jesse being on the draw is definitely not going to help him.
Yeah, though a first turn win is still probably more than good enough. If he does have a hand that's extremely explosive, it's unlikely that Dave is going to be able to play something that's going to impact him on the first turn. It's really turn 2 where Dave starts to throw stuff that's a huge problem.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is, it's like Dave will play one piece, and then Jesse will be like, okay, I can beat one piece, I just need to have one more mana, and then passes, and then he throws another piece down, and then on turn 4 he's able to play 2 things. And it just gets worse and worse. Jesse throwing it back.
Yeah, Jesse is aware of the type of hands that he's going to need to win here.
I saw a Necropotence that he threw back because Necropotence says you get to win next turn. And if you're not definitely going to have a next turn, it's not where you want to be. I could have even potentially seen him boarding that out in this matchup.
Yeah, if you're landing it on the first turn, it's probably more than good enough. As it starts to go later and later, I agree, it really gets much, much worse. And it's tough when you have other creatures to deal with. And Dave even has flash creatures in the sense of Aven Mind Sensor.
Yeah.
So it can be difficult to assess how much life to pay and make sure that your opponent doesn't have a chance. The nice thing here is this white trash list does not have any power, so there's no Time Walk. Time Walk is such a good card in these budget decks or these hate bear style decks that it can make it really difficult to predict. Pretty much any time that they're casting Time Walk and it's not the first turn or two, it's just so valuable because they get the value out of the attack step. But the control lists generally don't really value that highly.
Yeah, with 2 or 3 bodies, each of them with 2 power, it changes up your ability to have certain lines where, like, without Time Walk, maybe you can afford to go Vamp Tutor into Grim Tutor to win a game and then fetch land, and Time Walk can take those options away from you. Or it can just win the game.
Jesse's really thinking this 6 over.
I can tell he's like, it's pretty bad, but am I going to get a better 5? Or maybe he's just like doing math right now, like, yeah, maybe I just win on turn 1. No.
Going to 5.
Going to 5, alright. The Chrome Mox was probably his only mana source there, which is pretty rough.
Chrome Mox is one of those cards that I have a hard time getting excited about playing.
In a list like this, he could just play Mox Opal, probably. With all the power, plus the mana, he's even playing Mana Vault. Like, without Mana Vault, that's like, I feel like that might be the straw that breaks the camel's back there. Because it's just that one more. So you have the 5 Moxen, plus Mana Crypt, plus Sol Ring, plus Lotus. That's 8 artifact mana sources. In my opinion, if it's enough to play Tolarian Academy, you should at least be thinking about Mox Opal.
Yeah, Mox Opal is one of those tough cards where it's almost like ramp more so than acceleration. It's not going to be online the first turn a lot of the time. But if you're playing like a control list, almost like the Temple of the False Gods, one of the old Scourge cards that they've reprinted a few times.
Makes 2 mana if you control 4 lands or something.
Yeah, it's really good for a control deck to get that bump and acceleration in the middle of the game, and Mox Opal can do that very often. Compare that to, say, an Affinity list where Mox Opal is like literally like an extra land drop on turn 1 or 2. Pretty much always going to have 3 artifacts in Affinity lists. But there's going to be a lot of times where that Mox Opal isn't going to be online, and that consistency is just too dangerous in a format like this.
The one deck I've actually seen take very nice advantage of Mox Opal is Bomberman lists, because they also play artifact lands.
Yeah, and Sensei's Top and multiples helps a lot too, and you're playing Time Vault Key. I've splashed around with the card. Ultimately, I think that the slight acceleration isn't worth the games where it doesn't do anything. And versus workshops, it can be a problem to have a mana base that's so dependent on paying mana or casting spells. So if they land like a first turn Sphere of Resistance, you're just really going to struggle.
I know there's when they first changed the rule so that you can float a mana and play the second Mox Opal and sack the old one. The way they changed the legend rule around, there was a lot of speculation that it was going to be really big in storm lists because it's like a lotus petal that sticks around next turn. But the thing about that is you're not really worried about next turn if you're ramping them in like one after the other, chaining them together.
Alright, so we got a bunch of tutoring in response to this Leonin Arbiter, both the fetch land and the mystical tutor. Unfortunately, he can't just get the Tinker here because he's got the Grafdigger's Cage and the Arbiter to contend with. So that line pretty firmly shut off. Definitely not going to be tinkering for Blightsteel. We could potentially see Tinker for Jar later in this game, seeing as the Grafdigger's Cage doesn't stop that, but Arbiter is going to be a problem.
Could be getting a Toxic Deluge or something along those lines.
Yeah, I don't like Mystical for that because it shows your opponent what's going on, so that's a little bit of a problem. It'd be nice if you could kind of let your opponent play like a Thalia or something and then get all of the creatures off the board.
You can always just get an Ancestral.
I think that's probably what he's leaning towards here.
I mean, it's just, draw 3 cards. You're going to be able to do something better after you have 3 more cards. Why not?
Yeah, the downside is that Grafdigger's Cage cuts off a lot of the value of that, because usually you want to Ancestral and then be able to Yawgmoth's Will for a lethal kill. Now he's going to have to draw into some kind of removal. Now Dave's board is about as good as he can hope for, having Grafdigger's Cage and the Arbiter. He's got a guy on board that sets a clock and disrupts, and he has a non-creature permanent, so a card like Toxic Deluge isn't necessarily just going to mean the door's wide open. He still has stuff to contend with. So he's going to go with the Twister.
Yeah.
Which is, why he's playing Storm. He's much more comfortable drawing 7 and not caring what his opponent draws than just drawing 3. That definitely makes a lot of sense.
Twister is so good with, like, artifact ramp heavy hands, too. Like, if you can just go, like, turn 1, like, Mox, Soul Ring, and then, like, land, Twister, you're way ahead of the game.
Oh, absolutely. And your opponent doesn't have any control. When it's done on the first turn before they've gotten any utility out of their hand, it can just totally win the game from them drawing a bad 7. There's no mulling off of Twister. Let's see what we have here. With that nice unlimited Underground Sea hanging out with Mox Emerald, and now a Foil Chrome Mox pitching Hurkyl's Recall. So not interested in generating any kind of storm or extra value off of that.
Dark Ritual.
3 black.
So he's going to be able to float a black into this Twister and make a land drop. Float 2 black. So floating 2 black, looking for a land drop, storm of 3. He's got to like where he's at right now. I mean...
Yeah, that's why you play the deck. If you draw 7 with some mana floating, with a Storm count already in place, if you're not comfortable doing that, you don't want to be playing Storm.
Definitely not.
On Dave's side of the table, still nothing he can do to interact at all. He's already done all he can do to put out a Grafdigger's Cage and a Hate Bear. So he's just got to hope that Jesse doesn't get there and hope that the 7 he gets allows him to continue putting pressure on.
Mm-hmm.
Because 2 damage a turn is not actually going to be enough. Jesse drawing another 10 cards would likely get there if these 7 don't. So he's going to need some guys to follow up with. Hopefully a Thalia. I think that's probably the most important card in the matchup.
She definitely has a huge impact as soon as she hits the table. Especially when you're only playing creature spells and your opponent's only playing non-creature spells. It's just so one-sided.
It basically says your opponent needs an extra 10 mana to win the game. Jesse's definitely going to have to do the full 20 damage to get the win. It's not like Dave's playing fetch lands or thought seizes or anything. So the storm count is going to need to get to 10, and that means he's going to have to, if Thalia's out, he's going to have to spend at least an extra 10 mana, if not more.
Yeah. I could see a ritual. He's keeping it pretty close to the chest. I can't tell exactly what he's got in his hand. Land drop, sure. And now he's got to figure out if he can win with Storm right now. If not, he's got to maintain the card count in his hand.
He's got to ponder, so he can take a look and see. If he doesn't have it, he could always ponder and see if things are going to look either favorable for this turn or the turn after.
Well, the thing about his ponder is he has to use both his black mana floating to effectively fetch that polluted delta.
Oh, that's true. Yes.
So I mean, the ponder is definitely. I mean, if you're gonna fetch now, I guess is the time. If you don't just have the win. I can't quite tell. I think he's got a Necro in his hand.
Necro would be so nice.
Or no, is that Tendrils all the way? Yeah, that's no. I can't tell.
Yeah, or the Arbiter's really disruptive here.
Yeah.
Looks like Jesse could easily carry on here without it to get the win, but with it in the way,
he's just got so much to work around right now. And next turn, Dave is almost certainly going to play another creature.
Yeah,
he just drew 7 cards. Like, he's definitely putting another disruptive permanent down on the table. Jesse really needs a sweeper. He needs to be able to fetch, not get wasted, and have a sweeper in order to win the long game here.
Massacre would be strong. Not having to pay the mana would be more important now than most.
Paying double black and a life.
It looks like he's probably just going to go ahead and ponder here. Hope to get there, Dave. Tending to our life totals, keeping it clear.
We really appreciate the players helping out here with the life totals.
Definitely easy for Dave on his side of the table. It's either 20 or 0, almost certainly. There are times where Jesse might have to do a mini tendrils to stay alive and give himself outs. And sometimes it's correct to do a mini tendrils in order to fuel like a Yawgmoth's Bargain or something where you can trade life for cards. But more often than not, it's either you're at 20 or you're dead.
With the single tendrils and only, what is it? He's still got a Chain of Vapor left in there. I'm not sure if he has another Hercule's Recall left in the deck, and his Yogwell is effectively shut off right now.
That was very bad news for Dave. Jesse pondered and kept the 3 cards. That is not a good sign.
No.
That means that they are going to be good enough, almost certainly, to win next turn. I don't imagine Jesse would keep anything that wasn't going to get there.
But then again, that's assuming Dave doesn't just play another permanent-based 8 card.
Well, he may have an answer for them as well. We'll see.
He's got a Wasteland.
Oh, did he just target the
unlimited one?
It looks like they're both unlimited.
Oh,
one of them is altered.
Oh yeah, the altered one.
That is just going for blood.
Oh, and he's 2-for-1ing him on that Mox with the Leonin Relic Warder.
Even if he gets it back, he's gonna have to imprint.
Yeah, that's tough. So he did some big mana denial this turn. Jesse's math is all screwed up.
That's a particularly attractive line after somebody ponders, because they're going to be pondering based off of assumptions, largely their mana base and what their opponent's creatures are going to do.
Yep.
I think it would be realistically pretty difficult for Jesse to anticipate losing both of those in the same turn.
Yeah, I mean, so what Jesse would have to what could he do right now? He could go land, rituals.
Oh, a Wheel of Fortune.
Wheel of Fortune. That's a fun card.
Wheel of Fortune and a Vamp Tutor. The Vamp Tutor not going to be particularly useful unless you can get some more mana on board here.
Looks like double ritual is available. I think he has Tendrils in hand.
Jesse really thinking it through here, going with Dark Ritual number 1.
Storm of 1, 3 mana. Storm of 2, 5 mana. Sorry for the silence. I'm just kind of like on the edge of my seat right now.
Jesse's going to need to do 20 damage this turn, almost certainly.
I think he has tendrils in hand, so he's going to have to do something wild. Like play a Bloodstained Mire.
So if he's going to use some mana to shut off that Arbiter's effect for turn, he'll be able to fetch. He'll also be able to vamp Tutor.
Yeah. He's using the black floating as opposed to his emerald because he has plans for that emerald. He's got his access to black. Wheel of Fortune is now a card again. Not a cardigan. A card again.
Yeah, by using the black mana, if you know you're going to be committed to Wheel of Fortune here and you're going to use the emerald on that, it does potentially, not in this specific situation, but it does leave the untapped emerald as a resource for later.
Mm-hmm.
It may be a hangover from playing more control decks where you might need to pass the turn back to your opponent.
Now, when you wheel here and when he wheels, he's going to discard the tendrils.
So he's going to need to get rid of that Grafdigger's Cage.
Mm-hmm. He must have 2 ways of doing it. He probably has a rebuild left in his deck, and maybe he boarded in a rebuild.
I believe we saw him board in rebuild.
Yeah. So he's got a rebuild and a Chain of Vapor. He's got 2 ways. I mean, how many cards are in his graveyard? Like 9, 10, and then like 4 or 5 cards in his hand, 1 card exiled. So he's got like a 1 in 40. Well, he's got 7 opportunities of a 1 in 40. Well, no, that's not correct because it's gonna be a 1 in 40 and then 1 in 39. But for those of you at home who are better at math, feel free to go ahead and comment on what the actual odds are.
Now, interesting. Is he not vamping first? So he's not vamping before the wheel.
Maybe he felt his mana was better spent.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that. I feel like there's no way that it wouldn't be worth the 1 mana. Maybe he was thinking he couldn't search because of the Arbiter. Maybe he thought he had to pay 2 both times.
Yeah.
I'll have to ask him the next time I see him there.
What'd you get, Dave? Oh, nothing. Just 7 awesome cards. Want to see?
Guess he's using his life here.
Storm of 4.
Ooh, is that a misstep? What is that on the bottom of the camera there?
I don't think I saw a mental misstep in his list, unless we don't have the correct list.
Yeah, we have one of like a generic white trash list in front of us. Dave is known to make changes, sometimes even at the last minute.
Storm of 5. Storm of 6. So what does Jesse hit? What does he have? A black mana floating? He had 3 black mana. He had 5. He used 2 to fetch, and then he used 1 plus the emerald and the badlands to draw 7. So he should have 2 black mana floating here.
Yeah, I believe that's correct. So he's got a lot of colorless mana available to him, and he has that Lion's Eye Diamond. Grafdigger's Cage, still a problem.
Yep. He doesn't have double blue, so he can't Mind's Desire, which is unfortunate. So he's going up to 5 mana.
Yeah, he kind of has double blue in the LED. There could be ways of making that work, but
Yeah.
we'll have to see what's in his hand. It would involve like a brainstorm to put the Mind's Desire back on top, and then a way of drawing a card like another Gataxian probe.
Right. He's got a Grim Tutor in hand. I hope he's not factoring in 2 more mana in his equation here.
Yeah, Arbiter is a very oddly templated card. Lots of suspense here. This is almost certainly the game one way or the other. Either Jesse's going to find a way to win here, or White Trash is going to get a win over a very solid Vintage player on camera. Grim Tutor. Using the black. So that's the double black.
So he's got 2 colorless floating.
He should have 2 colorless.
He's thinking about passing priority. Probably thinking about sacking that LED. Looking at the cards in his hand. Figuring out if there's a way to gain value. He can't Yogg-Will. He needs 2 cards here. Like, he needs Yogg-Will and he needs a bounce spell. He might have the bounce spell in hand and just not have the blue mana. Yeah, so he's not cracking the LED. So he's got a colorless floating.
Ideally, where he'd like to be is a Mind's Desire, I think, at this point.
Yeah, Storm of 8. So we're gonna have to
see what he gets.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I'm very interested. So
yeah, so if he only has 2 colorless, he didn't crack the LED. I'm not sure what else he could have here.
Not much more he can do this turn. Looks like he has at least a land in hand, probably an Underground Sea.
Oh, then Chain of Vapor. Chain of Vapor would do a ton of work. It would allow him to bounce a ton of his acceleration.
Yep.
And then bounce whatever target permanent he's worried about.
Yep.
If he targets the Relic Warden, he'll be able to get back the Chrome Mox, imprint something, get double blue perhaps, and then getting rid of Grafdigger's Cage could potentially be helpful. It really depends on what's in his hand.
Yeah.
But he's probably got a tutor for an answer here. If he has that land in hand, then Chain of Vapor is probably your best bet because it's going to be acceleration and getting rid of a permanent.
Black Lotus. Wow, when did Jesse up his Lotus game?
Very recently.
Nice.
Yeah, he recently got that.
Nice job, Jesse. Before, he was only playing the Black Lotus that he won at the Philly Open. He only won a white bordered Lotus.
Yeah.
Come on, Jesse.
We don't all get to win black bordered Lotuses. Alright, Windfall. Is that a Windfall?
No. Is it a Windfall?
Pretty good if it is.
Is it a Mind's Desire? Did we miscount his mana? Oh no, that's a Windfall.
That's totally a Windfall.
I don't even know what that does. What do you...
everyone discards their hands and then draws cards equal to the greatest number discarded in this way.
7.
So it is a draw 7 when used in conjunction with other draw 7s.
And he's got 3 mana floating. Plus some amount of colorless, too, I believe.
Yeah, so he's in good shape here.
I think he got that Chain of Vapor. Storm of like 10.
Yeah, the Storm here is going to be lethal, whether it's a Mind's Desire or a Tendrils. Well, he only has the 1 Tendrils, we believe, so
yeah,
he'll need to get rid of the Grafdigger's Cage.
Going up to a colorless. Now, he just fired off that Dark Ritual, so maybe he had a black floating. He must have. So we'll assume he's up to 3 black.
Yes, he's had to play a lot of spells this turn. Really have to sequence everything correctly. One little mistake with Storm can often be the difference in between not necessarily winning and losing, but losing and continuing to play, and that's the problem that a lot of people run into if they just jump into playing Storm, is you make this one little mistake and you're out of the game.
Right, you don't necessarily just like make all the right plays and win all at once, but you make all the right plays and like stay in contention for winning.
Yes. Yeah, you can't necessarily win on the first turn every time, but with Storm, you can probably find a way to lose on the first turn.
Yeah.
Pretty consistently. Just waste your resources. So is that the Chain of Vapor?
That is the chain.
That is going to be big. So we're going to see he's got 2 lands. So sacking a land, bouncing Ruby. Okay, sacking a land, and now we've got to get rid of most likely the Grafdigger's Cage.
Yep.
He is going to need to access that.
He's got 3 black and a colorless floating. I believe. Storm of Brain Freeze.
Brain Freeze would be a fine play, especially after all those draw 7s.
Yeah.
Sadly, not in his list.
And he gets that Mind's Desire. How did he get that double blue? I don't even know.
I didn't follow the double blue either.
Yeah, because I saw him use the blue from his Sapphire to cast the Chain of Vapor, and I don't know where he replayed the Sapphire. I don't know where the other one came from, but
unfortunately, we don't have an Abacus with us here while we're watching, so it can be easy to lose track. So Jesse's flipping Tinker.
We just have to believe.
That's good news.
He's got so many cards that he can flip right now.
Academy now.
Wall Ritual.
Simian Spirit Guide.
So all this talk about Spirit Guides.
There you go. It's totally a valid line.
Yep.
It can get you out of really bad situations. Unfortunately, all it is a 2/2 here, because you can't exile it from the Mind's Desire. Oh, there's your Yogg-Will.
There it is. That's the game,
that'll
folks.
do it.
Yeah.
Yawgmoth's Will is going to be able to...
He's like, do I need to keep going? I mean, Storm of... count as mana.
Yeah, Yogg-Will with the Thresholded Cabal Ritual is going to allow him to just replay everything, and he's already got the Tendrils in there.
Yeah.
So that is well played by Jesse there.
Yep.
Dave threw up much of a roadblock as he possibly could.
Yeah, I mean, this list that Jesse's playing is much more powerful than older lists he's played before. Before he only had the Time Twister as his draw 7, and now he's got Time Twister, Memory Jar, Windfall, Wheel of Fortune, like
Lion's Eye Diamond as well for the extra acceleration. We saw that be useful.
Well, it's much better with all these draw 7s.
Absolutely.
In his older list, I wouldn't have played Lion's Eye Diamond, but clearly Jesse knows what he's doing. So that was round 3. Pretty exciting. We'll see you guys at the finals.